This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. I am Dr. Duke, and I am really proud to be joined today by Wisconsin State Representative Dave Murphy. Dave, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Duke. Pleasure to be here.
You represent Wisconsin's 56th district, my district, as a matter of fact, and you are also, most importantly to me anyway right now, you are the chairman of the Committee for Colleges and Universities, which means
Correct.
You are the sort of the head man when it comes to the assembly and dealing with the university. Talk a little bit briefly about your responsibilities there.
Well, the committee takes on any bills that regard the university, and so we have hearings on those bills to vet them and be able to pass them on to the full body of the assembly. Generally speaking, we have literally dozens of bills that will come to us every session.
And most importantly, right now, it seems to me that you are having statewide hearings about the question of free speech and worldview diversity on college campuses. So one of your major initiatives right now is you're doing a listening hearings. And I testified at one last week at UW-Oshkosh, my college, and the fourth out of four will be next week on Madison. Give us the date and location for that for people who might want to follow you on these hearings.
Sure. So the next hearing is this coming Thursday, May 11th, and it'll begin at 11 o'clock in the state capitol. And we have an interesting group of people coming to testify. UW System President Jay Rothman will actually be testifying at that particular hearing. And, as well as a number of other people. We have former Regent Tim Higgins will be testifying before a committee. John Saylor, who is with the American Academy of Scholars, will be testifying. We're also going to have a young man who is a student at the Medical College of Wisconsin who has recently canceled me from an event.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk to you about today, Dave. The Wisconsin Association of Scholars, an organization that's associated with the NAS, the National Scholars Organization out of Washington and New York. And what they do is they are an alternative to the MLA, right, which is a very progressive organization of professors for promoting research and things. And the NAS tends to be more middle of the road. They are actually taking a stand for scholarship and research that is not woke and radically left-wing. They are really a very useful and necessary voice in the academy to try to balance the scale. And so we have a situation where the Wisconsin Association of Scholars was about to hold its spring symposium on May 12th. And this was going to be a really important event. You were speaking at this as the chairman?
Correct. I was on a panel that was going to be discussing diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
Programs.
And whether it's not helpful or whether it's helpful or not in higher education. And it wasn't just you, it was a sitting United States Senator, Ron Johnson was part of that as well. Yes. And what is Mr. Saylor's first name? Robert Saylor.
Excuse me.
John Saylor, excuse me, a ranking official for the NAS and the Wisconsin Association of Scholars. This was about to go on. This has been on the books for quite a while, months now. And at the last minute, with a week to go or so, the president of the medical college, the organization that was hosting you, canceled because he was afraid that unknown or anonymous organizations or faculty members or students sort of threatened this event, potentially even with violence and disruption. Talk about that.
Well, I would love to know the nature of any kind of threat. And when I talked to the president of the Medical College of Wisconsin, he told me, well, there was no specific threat. And we've had protests around the country, and some bad things have happened on other campuses. We think of the Stanford situation, but on a campus like Stanford, there's a huge undergraduate classes there that they're looking to protest. When I look at the Medical College of Wisconsin, I see medical students and doctor faculty, and I'm trying to figure out who's going to protest on this campus. I don't understand it. And I certainly would like to know a whole lot more about how they were gauging this threat. And, you know, as you had said, this has been planned for quite some time. And suddenly on Thursday, 8 days before the event, they cancel it. And that cancellation happened to come within hours after the Joint Finance Committee in the state legislature approving money for their institution.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that. Just before you were canceled from that public college, the assembly, the legislature turned over millions of dollars to this school. Let me ask you this. If they had canceled you before this was approved in the assembly, would things have been different, do you think?
That's a good question. It certainly could have been, and I think the timing is curious, and would certainly like to understand maybe where they were coming from, because I think it was timed.
Yeah, I do too. So people at home have a better understanding. This was the Wisconsin Association of Scholars. This was their spring symposium, as we talked about before, and the event was to feature a panel discussion on the uses and abuses of government-sponsored DEI programming in universities generally, and specifically in medical, scientific, and technical education. This is a big deal, right? Should college medical programs be teaching kids, young students, to become pro-abortion, to be doing transgender surgeries? Very serious issue. The participants, as we mentioned, were Senator Ron Johnson, Representative Dave Murphy, and John D. Saylor. Quickly about him. He is a senior fellow and director of university policy at the National Association of Scholars. This is an important organization. Saylor's research on DEI policies in higher ed has been highlighted in the Wall Street Journal and credited with the recent trend at a growing number of universities to abandon the use of DEI statements in faculty hiring. So this is a prestigious panel. You've got Ron Johnson, a United States Senator. We've got you, the chair of this committee, and we have an expert on this. Why do you think Raymond made this? There were no public threats. There were no bomb threats. Why 8 days before do you think you had a conversation with President Raymond? How did that conversation go?
Well, it was interesting because President Raymond said that their institution supported free speech, and I had to say apparently not, because you can't say one thing and do another and then somehow have that be reality. It's just not. And it's very disappointing to me. And I understand, so why do they cancel us? Well, I've been doing hearings around the state on free speech, and it has really pointed out a lot of flaws in higher education. And this makes institutions nervous. I get that. But I'm not trying to make them nervous to harm them. I'm trying to make them nervous to get them to look at themselves and make themselves better. And I want education, higher education in Wisconsin, to be the best it can be when it comes to free speech.
Why would the administration of a college, a president, why would he be nervous about exposing kids to a different perspective to the one they usually get?
I think there's a woke mentality on these campuses. Everything's about politics, even when you're not in politics, even when you're in places like universities. And they understand that there's a powerful pushback by the woke left, and they are the most active. I've made a comment one time to some of my colleagues. I said, when you look at a college campus, 10% of the professors are conservative, 60% of them are liberal, and 30% of them are woke. The liberals have been used to fighting conservatives for years, and they're happy to do that. But they are deathly afraid of the woke left.
You know, Dave, you and I have talked. I've been a professor for 30 years. Now, granted, I'm an English professor in the humanities. That 10%, I'd be thrilled to have 10%.
If it was really 10%.
Exactly.
I'm probably over-exaggerating that amount.
Rarer than a unicorn,
Yeah.
but your point is well taken. Before we move forward, let's take a look at President John Raymond's statement. Here's what he had to say about cancellation. Dear students, staff, and faculty, I am writing to inform you that I have decided to rescind the use of our facilities for the Wisconsin Association of Scholars Symposium that was to take place. A fundamental purpose of a university is to facilitate the exchange of ideas, even when those ideas challenge our cherished values or are offensive to members of our community. First of all, notice this, right? He's telling you that we're all about free speech just after we canceled it. And he admits that sometimes controversial things should be heard. And yet, he goes on to say, however, the exchange of ideas should not disrupt the core functions of a university or jeopardize the safety of our MCW community. While I have decided to rescind the use of our facilities for the symposium, I am retaining the possibility to allow the symposium or similar event to be held at MCW in the future under less disruptive conditions. Dave, let me ask you this question. He's basically said, if they threaten us from the left, that's a bridge too far, we can't do it. But in the future, we might do it if they don't threaten us. Now, isn't that a recipe for empowering the left, the campus left, to cancel everything?
Courage is very rare in this world, Duke. And obviously, this administrator doesn't have the courage to do what he should do. There are situations that come up from time to time where leaders have to make tough decisions and they have to do the right thing. And he has just chosen not to do that here. Right here in the Valley, for instance, the Medical College of Wisconsin and Froedtert Hospital are talking about merging with ThedaCare. I got to tell you, I'm not that hepped up about this idea now. I mean, these things have big impacts on lots of different decisions.
This is an issue that affects everybody in the state of Wisconsin and really but everybody across the country. Let me ask you this question. I want to get your response to this. So we're basically being told that because some perhaps progressive faculty, progressive students don't like this. Clearly, they've been in his ear. There's been no formal statement from them, but just people whispering in his ear apparently is enough to make him cancel this. So if what we're dealing with here is a situation where there's only one way to teach medical schools, and it's very political, like you said. We're teaching doctors to be politicians. By this very decision, we are rewarding political doctors over non-political. How can we trust in the future that if these young doctors become our doctors, they become the doctors of the future, how can we tell that they will deal with us as people, not as political agents? I mean, if we've already politicized their education.
I think this is a very good question, Dr. Duke. And I am becoming very concerned about how medicine is being administered in this country, and the fact that it's becoming boilerplate. I have a good friend who's a doctor who said, you get to the point where there's an algorithm on the computer to tell you what to do for particular diseases, and you go check the boxes, and he says, what kind of a doctor do you need to do this?
Well, we actually have some evidence.
Pretty simple.
We have some evidence from a student who's going to testify with you next week. After the break, I want to come back and continue this conversation with Dave Murphy, Representative Dave Murphy, because this is going to kind of surprise some people. See you in a minute. Back again with State Assemblyman Dave Murphy of the 56th District. We're talking to you now in your capacity as the chair of the Committee of Colleges and Universities. In other words, Dave, it's your responsibility to make sure that the functioning of our public universities and colleges is in line with the law, and given that the legislature funds these programs. And we have a very disturbing situation where the Milwaukee College of Medicine has decided that they're not going to host you and other speakers of high renown because of potential disruptions. You received a email from a student who goes to that college and who is going to end up testifying next week at your committee hearing. Give us a little overview of the kind of things that he shared with you.
So that particular student, Medical College of Wisconsin student, and talked about just how woke the institution is, what things are not able to be discussed, and just sort of the how medicine is not laid out anymore as medical science. I've talked with friends in the profession that said in the past, doctors were medical scientists. And so a medical scientist, views the information that they have available to them. They use their experience, they use their training and knowledge, and then they sort of extrapolate a treatment from the diagnosis that they make. And this has become purely boilerplate now. And so this young man's going to speak this, and he's very adamant about speaking. I had talked to him, and I said, we're having a hearing on Thursday, May 11th, and would you like to come to that? And he said, well, I'm going to be in Spain. Would you mind if I testify from Spain via Zoom? And I said, absolutely. I said, we will work it out so that you can be there. And this was a course change for our committee, because really the main subject of our committee hearing was free speech and the quality of education within the UW system. Well, the Medical College of Wisconsin isn't part of the UW system, but I think this is such an egregious issue with free speech that we really need to do something about it.
You make a great point about how doctors theoretically are scientists, and they're supposed to be analytical in their study and how they approach medicine, analytical, scientific, all of that stuff, empirical in what they do. Now we're seeing a situation where doctors are being trained to be social justice warriors. They're being taught to put social values over analytical, empirical evidence. For instance, according to the testimony, we're going to hear that many of the speakers at this college, this medical college, were radical left-wing. They were urging young doctors, urging them from the podium to vote only for Democrats, right? They were urging people to take the environment, young doctors, to take the environment in when you do medication. So for instance, you decide whether or not to give anesthesia to a patient, not because of the pain he's feeling, but because how that might impact the environment. In other words, the speaking roster is really, really left-wing. And so here you guys are, and this is the thing that really boils me. You weren't invited to speak to the doctors. You weren't invited. Ron Johnson, our senator, wasn't involved. John Saylor, an expert, was not invited to talk to the kids about medical ethics or procedures or attitudes. You just wanted to use their facility to talk generally. And still, they canceled you while promoting these radical left-wing speakers.
Well, as I see it, Duke, the only way that they could have harmed themselves was to do exactly what they did, and that's cancel us, because we weren't there to speak in any way about what the Medical College of Wisconsin was doing necessarily. It was just to speak in general about DEI. And it's interesting, there was a very good debate held recently at Cornell University, in which there were two people speaking for DEI, two people speaking against. Heather McDonald happened to be one of the speakers against DEI. And, at the end of a long debate, all four people said that DEI has gone off the rails, it's not working. And of course, the pro-DEI side decides that it's best then to double down on it, spend more money on it, and do it more. rather than saying, this doesn't work, maybe we shouldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, we have an example too. The last one I'll read to you from John Raymond, the president of this Milwaukee College of Medicine. Listen to the double speak here, because I'm an English professor, as I've mentioned already. I see, if somebody wrote to me this kind of a statement, saying one thing and implying another, I'd have to point them out as a teacher of writing. This is bad writing. He says, together, we have a responsibility to create conditions that maximize the value of the exchange of ideas, that respect the safety and well-being of the people who work, visit, and learn here, and that minimize disruptions to the operation of our institution. He's literally looking you in the eye, Dave, and telling you, you guys are controversial. Controversial makes us less safe. Because we're less safe, we can't talk to you. We can't let you speak. And yet, we're doing all of this in the name of free speech. By doing what we did to you in the committee, we are actually promoting free speech, Dave. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's ridiculous. It's really hard to to add any more to that, because, well, I think about on the way over here today, you and I have gotten to know each other fairly well over the last couple of years. But I think about, how did we come together? We come from very different backgrounds. There's nothing else that would draw Duke Pesta and Dave Murphy together. But that's where America is different than everywhere else, because people here are not drawn together because they come from the same families and the same ethnic background and have all these other commonalities. We're brought together by the commonality of our ideas. And you and I believe so strongly in free speech, and that's what drives us together. And it should be what's bringing the country together. But as we get away from free speech, we see how divisive it is to the country.
Yeah, and it seems to me the progressive left, particularly at universities, at the highest levels of universities, are telling people, we don't want that exchange anymore. We don't want those different ideas. Everybody needs to think the same way. Coincidentally, that means to think left, right? In the name of safety. Quickly, while we've got a few minutes left, talk about the hearings again, and let people know about the one coming up on Thursday, and give us a quick overview of how you think the hearings to protect free speech on campus are going.
Well, the genesis of these hearings was the student survey done within the University of Wisconsin system. A research team out of the University of Stout and the University of Eau Claire did a student survey in which they surveyed 10,500 University of Wisconsin students. And what the survey told us is students don't understand the First Amendment, don't understand their free speech rights, don't feel like they are being treated properly within the institution, and specifically conservative and Republican students feel like they're being discriminated against on campus. They feel like if they write a paper that doesn't sort of conform to the worldview of the professor, that they're going to be downgraded. And so we decided to do this series of hearings. We started in Madison. We had Jacqueline Pfeiffer Merrill from the Bipartisan Policy Research Center in Washington, D.C. testify. We had Professor Joe Heim, who is a liberal Democrat, testify. And we had students testify. Then we went to Eau Claire and we heard from the research team so that they could tell us about the survey. And the head of the research team said to me afterwards, the thing that surprised him is that no member of the committee, and that including all the Democrats, nobody really questioned the quality of the research itself. So then we had our hearing in Oshkosh, in which you and one of your former students testified. Excellent testimony. Interesting to hear, the boots on the ground. How are they affected by this? And when you have a young Black woman who is going to a university and has a white professor not you, by the way, another white professor, that suggests that, that she's not maybe thinking properly because she doesn't believe in all this woke ideology. That's really interesting.
That's a big deal. So basically what I'm hearing from you is that the hearings are bringing much needed evidence and information to the table, but there are still forces, even on the committee, who see this as a political, not a balance issue, right? No one on our side is saying that we should have less progressive speech. We're saying we need to, and something John Raymond needs to learn at the Milwaukee College of Medicine, that equal speech is not a threat unless you're an ideologue, not an educator. Dave, thank you so much for joining us today. I urge everybody out there to go and pay attention. Wisconsin Eye and other places will show you the hearings. You can watch all of them. This is an important issue. And the fact that this college has the gall to cancel a program like this that's been around, that's been on the books for months, right after they get a big grant from the assembly, a big chunk of money from the assembly, shows not just bad timing, but bad faith as well. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. Duke, and we look forward to hearing you next time on the show.